Online banking and insurance services gained pace during the pandemic, while banks built open banking ecosystems and insurers improved customer experiences. E-commerce today has integrated most customer engagements. In this session today, we want to discuss how a new focus on consumer experience and work style helps build financial ecosystems aligned to future market needs. And joining me today is Wilhelm Petersmann, Managing Director of Fujitsu Switzerland and Austria, Head of Financial Vertical in Central Europe, and Dr. Martin Schulz, Chief Economist of Fujitsu in Tokyo. Welcome to you both. We'll start with you, Wilhelm. The pandemic resulted in a digital boom. What's changed in finance?
Well, this is a very interesting time. I think banks are looking for a new purpose. Insurance companies are a little bit further. They are using already smart devices and creating new products. But in principle, you can see them acting, all these companies, on three levels. The base level, let me see, it's the base level. I think they are dealing with digitalization within the data centers. This has a lot to do with hybrid ITs. They have the challenge to run several clouds from hyperscalers or from in-house and let it appear as one service towards the customer. The purpose of this is, of course, gain efficiency, gain cost sharings. Yeah. The second level is about employee experience. It's within the enterprise. Yeah. We are talking about process automation. Yeah. It's all about how you can make processes with digitalization more efficient, smarter, faster. And the third level, and I have to admit that there are only a few customers already acting on the third level, is where they're working on the customer experience. That means they are creating new services, tailored products where digitalization is built in. How can you imagine, how does this look like? For example, a car insurance company is giving a tailored product to the market where car drivers can, according to their driving habit, such as speed, how they brake, what are the weather conditions, are they driving mainly in cities or in countryside? So you can tailor-made with the usage of IoT, sensors, this policy, and of course you can give them an individual price about this. So this is a very modern approach on the third layer.
Martin, in Asia, e-commerce is leading in DX and CX. In China, it's now under attack by the government. Can you tell us what's going on?
Yes, we had this explosion of e-commerce already beforehand. Alibaba in China alone with 800 million users integrating, well, from the customer side down to logistics and gradually also all financial processes, even private banking being included. And that was the story before the pandemic. With the pandemic, we really saw this additional explosion on top of it, e-commerce doing basically everything. And banks were trying to catch up. They did that beforehand. We had in the last year a huge boom in terms of fintech, banks integrating their services, banks building on their open banking platforms, all very interesting, but no match to what was going on in e-commerce. Alibaba with Ant Finance, the biggest IPO in the world being planned for December, and then everything was called off. The governments got concerned. Too much integration on the e-commerce side. Banks were complaining. So what we had is that the government was basically kicking back saying, guys, this is too much. We need to have finance safe. We need to have transactions safe. They are working now on digital central bank monies. This is very, very good news for the banks. They can now set up their business model anew. It will be transaction with central banks. It will be transactions together with e-commerce. That is a wonderful new platform we are seeing emerging from after the pandemic.
In Europe, banks have been the digital leaders, but they didn't get any credit for it. What's still going wrong?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They are digital leaders, as in Asia. But, you know, the customer experience in the e-commerce is much stronger than at the banks. Pandemic stock prices are going up in all sectors. depending on the strengths of the digitalization degree, except in finance. So why is this? I think banks have a severe issue in their purpose. They don't have real ecosystems in place in Europe. They are working their way out here, and they have also quite a, let me say, big legacy system. At the core, they all are talking about open banking, but if you look at it at the core, nobody has really integrated with an ecosystem, open banking system. I think insurance is a bit different. They are already working, collaborating with new partners in the market and also embedding digitalization into the products, as I've mentioned before. But banks, they still suffer on their legacy systems, not being capable to do end-to-end processing, open up the bank and give the customers, therefore, a better user experience, customer experience.
Martin, Fujitsu Japan see a big role for new ecosystems. What do finance ecosystems look like?
Well, what we've been seeing on the industry side is really, well, an explosion of ecosystems, new contacts across the supply chain. Manufacturers were not only integrating the supply chains vertically, they were reaching out horizontally as well. That was very important. They were connecting with new partners, bringing in new ideas, bringing in startups, bringing in us, of course, for IT integration. These new ecosystems were basically going, well, from the consumer side down to production. IoT has been the old catchword. They were living it. What we saw in retail is, well, omni-channel, new partners, in particular during the pandemic and for the time after in the new normal, you go with new partners into all different channels. Finance has been slow on that. Banks, and I completely agree with Willem here, banks have been working on it heavily. They have the platforms, they have everything, but they need to connect with the partners in a new form. And these ecosystems were developing now during the pandemic. DBS Bank in Singapore, the largest bank in Southeast Asia, were connecting their ecosystems, well, down to supporting their customers with advice to find the best doctor. Penang Financial Group, the biggest insurer we have, 50% everything digital health. Digital health. They are the leader there now. These are new ecosystems, and this is where banks have to follow up, where banks have really a new role to play.
Wilhelm, how could such ecosystems work in Europe?
Well, I think in Europe, we have to be strong on trust. Yeah, I think banks are trustworthy in Europe, also, of course, insurance companies, but they have to find their way in new ecosystems. They have to deal with the integration of, let me say, physical product, capital finance, and digital trade, which obviously results in new digital borders, such as we have at the UK, for example, nowadays. And they have to handle the risks, and we have a need for resilience. Banks and insurance companies provide the insight, they support operations, and they guide applications. I think it's very important that they have a common value proposition, which is resulting out of sharing information, giving trust, and of course, using technology innovations. How can this look like concrete? Think about the import of goods from Asia to Europe. You need to have digital documentation. You need to have a risk handover. You have to have documentations for the shippers, for the customs, for the port authorities, and you have to make sure that this deal is handled properly, that there are no risks, nor for the buyer or for the vendor. How can you do this? Seamless, very secure. You can apply blockchains, for example.
Martin, inside banks and insurance, surely new digital ecosystems require new work styles. How are companies preparing for the new normal?
We already knew that the best customer experience really depend on the employee experience. We can provide our employees with much better data today. We can provide them with automated processes that give them more time to connect to their accounts and also to the consumers they are dealing with. But what we saw during the pandemic is really a chance when everybody got locked into the home office, everyone was on digital platforms, to connect this in a new way. That was our work life shift, getting our employees much closer to the customer, to use the platforms to integrate what we have been seeing beforehand in terms of B2C, business to customer business. And then we had B2B, business to business experiences, which is mostly strategic accounts. We saw everybody being on the same platforms meant that we could integrate that much closer. I mean, a business account is basically the sum of the people working in there. We can deal with them directly. We do not just go golfing anymore during the weekend with the biggest accounts. We connect with the entire supply chain. We are connecting with our customers on many new levels, and that we have to do this together with our employees. They have the data. They now have the processes. Now they need to reach out. They need to get much closer to the customers. We call this business to everyone, B2E. That is the work style we are helping to support now. We see tremendous success and people being much happier, being on more channels, being much closer to the customer.
So, Willem, is finance in Europe ready for new work styles?
Yeah, of course they are ready, but you have to be aware it is mainly a cultural change. Yeah. So we are changing really the foundations of an office. Yeah? And it's not only that you have now a lot of part of home offices. So where you have some, let me say, smart working, where you can work all over Europe or all over the world even, and collaborate with your colleagues, which are like we are now talking to Martin, who is in Tokyo. I'm here in Syracuse and London. So I think we have to be aware that you work much more with virtual teams. Yeah? And this needs new technologies to be applied. You don't need to go to the office just to do your emails. You can do this from at home. The office in future will be much more a creative room. And that means that you also have to change your IT support to, for example, allow distributed workshops to give the persons a support where you can secure, process a workshop. And it is not so easy. This change in culture doesn't really happen fast. Yeah? You have steadily to work on it. You have to foster virtual team office, virtual teamwork. And you have to be aware that the office, the purpose why you are in the office will be in future a meet and greet, more a creative room, and not just standard work which you are doing in the office. This will be done at home.
With that in mind, the next question is to both of you. If we're to compare Asia and Europe, who's best positioned for the new normal? And I'll start with you, Willem.
Well, I think, of course, Europe is best positioned. Why? We have very trustworthy enterprises in Europe. I think the core of banking, of financial services, of insurance is trust. And I see a lot of companies investing heavily into digitalization, into process automation, breaking up their legacy systems, working on new lifestyles, work styles, business models. And therefore, I'm really, let me say, looking forward that Europe will set the pace. Yeah? I think they have been a little bit behind Asia in the past, but now they have catched up and they are really advancing in automation, using of hybrid IT, allowing their employees to work in various locations, together in virtual teams, together embedding the customer with new customer experience. And therefore, I'm absolutely convinced that Europe will make the race.
And Martin, your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm in Asia for a reason. I'm quite sure that after the pandemic, Asia will come back very, very, very strongly. So growth will clearly be in Asia. But when we look at banking, I have to admit that Willie has a strong point here. And the strong point is we are looking towards Europe in terms of ecosystems, in terms of upgrades, new ideas for ecosystems. There is a lot of regulation involved. I mentioned the central banks. Central banks in Europe will play a major role here as well, getting the new transaction functions up. We will see that the new work styles will work very, very well in Europe. Connecting the home office with everything while we will be remain locked in many places in the high-rise buildings we are. So yes, I'm with Willie. I think in terms of finance ecosystems, this is a big chance after e-commerce got a little bit shocked here in Asia already.
So both kind of agreed there. Willem, if people want to, how can they find out more?
Yeah. So if you want to conduct further discussions with us, doing deep dives on our experience, we have a lot of customer meetings where we see on how companies get along with that journey to digital. We have also a lot of solutions in our services offerings. So if you are really interested, please don't be shy. Just contact us on our landing page. We are really looking forward to collaborate with you, to do digital cooperation with you.
Martin, Willem, thank you very much for all your contributions today, and thank you for watching.